Okay, is everyone ready to start our meeting? Then let's all rise and do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask the secretary to establish quorum.
Mr. President, all of the members of the board are present and accounted for.
Okay, and proof of notice? Okay, then we'll now move into resident comments on agenda topics.
Your reverberate.
First person on the agenda is Mike Wolfner. No, actually, we would like him to stay there, but can you make sure the microphone's on? I'm going to have someone working on this area in a moment, so we'd like you to.
Checking. My name is Mike Voitanek. I'm at 2720 Vareo. I've only been in the community for a year. I've heard numerous rumors about the clubhouse expansion, HOA fees, and I'm hoping this meeting will clear up some of those things because they're very disturbing to me. Prior to me moving and buying here, the major selling point of this, not only Taylor Morrison, but the people here in the offices, were that more than 70% of the members of this community voted on a clubhouse expansion. It was approved. It was a done deal. There was no additional assessments being taken. We were a very solvent community, and even the HOA fees in the foreseeable future were not going to be raised. I'm hearing all kinds of rumors about things like that, and I'm hoping that that's not true, because I would be very disappointed if that were true.
Thank you, Mike, for those comments. For anyone else, that was very appropriate. However, we have an open forum at the end of the meeting. At the beginning of the meeting, we should keep our items to agenda items only. And then again, at the end of the meeting, HOA fees.
Clubhouse expansion is on the agenda.
Right. Next one, Kathleen Falstein. Kathleen Falstein.
You need your mic on. Is? She's not here.
Hi. Well, I'm Patty Dressler, and Kathleen has a back problem, and she sent me a message and asked if I would read something that she had sent to the board, so I told her that I would be proud to. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to question about legality related to the clubhouse expansion. Originally, the resident vote was based upon false financial status of our HOA, as well as inaccurate feasible proposal of architecture/engineering and construction, including a very stern promise of no increase in dues. Are we legally bound to the vote? Wouldn't it be prudent and due diligence to cast another vote after accurate financials and architecture and et cetera are completed? No. Well, let's listen to the rest of it, please. We all have our opinions. I'm for improvements, but not certain to what extent given our accurate financial picture. I believe that vote was based on misleading or untrue facts and really should be negated and simply held to another vote with definitive projections. I find it hard to believe that after all of this time, as well as misguided financials being brought to light, that we would be legally bound to that vote. We must pay attention to the financial impact to this community. Sincerely, Kathleen Falstein on Ashbury, and I'm here to say I know a lot of you are against it, but I second her 100%. I was going to speak tonight too, saying basically the same thing. Thank you.
McKinnon.
Good evening. My name is Frances McKinnon. I live on Woodbourne Place. I apologize for the screeching. I am 100% against what this lovely lady just said that came up. I do believe that there would be 100% transparency during the original vote. I agree that there was nothing that was inappropriate going on with the board as far as our money or the appropriation of monies. And in the United States, whenever you vote for something, we only vote once. I don't know where everybody else comes from, but you vote on it. And if you don't like the result of the vote, then next time step up and do something about it. Get out and vote, or be quiet. So I really want the expansion to go on. I mean, I was playing one of the card games the other night, Bunko. I felt like I was squished into a closet. We need more room. There's a lot that has to be done around here. It's a beautiful place. We all love the place. I bought my house 5 years ago. I'm now a permanent resident. I've been here for all of 10 weeks. I'm still learning the neighborhood, you know. But it's beautiful, and I want to stay here till the day I die. And I would like to see the clubhouse go on because we did vote, and the ayes had it. Thank you.
Since I was brought to light on the last option from this lovely lady, the letter that I read from Kathleen, we did vote twice on something in here, and that was the rentals that come into this. We had a vote on it. The vote was not approved, and it was put on a second time.
Okay, thank you. Next person, in fact, that was the last speaker, but I want to make sure before we go on. Tamara, are you here? Tamara, was yours strictly related to fees, or would it also include clubhouse expansion?
I'm appropriate at the end, yep.
Okay, thank you. Ready.
Okay, we will move on to the next topic, and it's approval of the past meeting minutes. And we have in front of us a revised copy with a few changes. Does anyone have anything that they would like to see an error on those, or can we approve those?
I will make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Okay, second? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes? All in favor? Okay, the minutes are approved. The next order of business is the President's report. And it's a little longer than 3 minutes, but I think it's important. I want to personally express my appreciation for each and every homeowner who's taken the time to write to me an email expressing your feelings about the budget and the clubhouse expansion. These two items are actually not directly related. I know you might be saying, how can I make such a statement? Well, let me explain. This year, the board made the commitment to allow the community to look under the hood of the budget development process. You are seeing the numbers presented by the GM, which is the wish budget, and then you're seeing how the board is helping to fact check each and every line item. We are in a unique situation this year as we have little institutional knowledge of how the line items were estimated last year. Secondly, a budget is only our best estimate as to what these actual costs will be in 2020. With any budget, there will be line items that you hit 100%. Then there will be others that you will miss the target both high and low. Life presents many unexpected twists and turns. Our GM spends endless hours producing a reevaluation each month to see if we are meeting our budget projections and is prepared to sound the alarm if we're way off. The budget presented in our first workshop requested an 8% increase. Does this mean that our HOE fees will be going up 8%? Absolutely not. In fact, Jerry can attest that I was not his best friend when presented with these numbers, and this number was only a starting point, and we're all working together to fact check these things. The natural question to then ask was, why such a huge increase? Well, our landscape budget line item has gone through the roof for the day-to-day services, and it has been discovered that the perimeter coverage inside and outside the fence line has not been well defined. Several board members have spent numerous hours researching the issue. Once this has been properly vetted, we will have a one-time solution and a new accurate number as to our yearly routine landscape cost obligation for each year going forward. prior to this solution being put into place, we have residents who have portions of their yards that are not getting the needed care. Please bear with us. And I'll just diverge just a moment. Al Roper and I on some streets have been out and talked to the neighbors and came in and talked to the general manager and back talked to the neighbors, and is it Crawford, is it Brightview, and what we found out is the answer to that was that no one definitely had sole responsibility for those areas. We have areas in Phase 3 that homeowners have the same area along the fence line that have not been maintained, and again, we're finding the very same thing. This is what we're going to rectify. The final budget number is going down, and remember that a portion of the increase will be coming from our telecommunications fund. The final budget number is falling every day, so I look forward to sharing our final result in the near future. Moving into the expansion project, I can tell you that our current facility is woefully inadequate. If the board wants to hold a meeting or the landscape committee wants to meet with the vendors, there's absolutely no place available. For a community our size, 1,425 homes, this is shameful. This clubhouse project is a community need, not a want, and will be handled as such. Mistakes were made on the initial rollout. Every member of your current board has been involved in first discovering what went wrong and then attempting to resolve the issues in a manner where our hard-earned dollars can and will be protected. Through the advice of many, it became obvious that we need to have a professional project manager who oversees the project from start to finish. The previous architectural firm has been found to be in breach of their contract. This is not something that anyone can be proud of, but it's a reality. Rest assured that the same mistakes will not be made going forward. This time, we will have a construction attorney on board, and we will be hiring a professional project manager who will guide us and keep us updated financially throughout both the development as well as construction. Will the scope be smaller? Absolutely. The board is committed to the original agreed-upon price of $1.9 million in construction costs, with the size to be determined. This is a need in our community list of infrastructure improvements, and the project will be moving forward. Tonight, I want to thank the existing Ad Hoc Expansion Committee for all the hard hours and work that they put into the Phase 1 of that project. I am suggesting to the board that we rename the committee to the Ad Hoc Clubhouse Improvement Committee. No longer an expansion, it's an improvement. Reorganizing this committee for Phase 2. In doing so, I would like to reconstitute the board membership for the committee to include Ron Spooner, Bill Tubb, and myself. If approved, we will meet and recommend additional resident appointments for the committee. These 3 committee board members will serve as team captains, A, B, and C. Ron Spooner will have Scott DeFilippis on his team. Bill Tubb will have Al Roper on his team, and I will have Marilyn Stout and Molly Knotts on my team. It will be the responsibility of each team captain to keep the team members fully informed every step of the way. We'll all know what's going on. Additionally, I want every resident of the community to feel that they too will be fully informed. And after this committee is reorganized, we're going to add the additional resident membership. In closing, funds and the funding sources are available to balance the budget and to allow the needed capital improvement projects to become a reality. And I thank you. And Bill, talk to the treasurer.
Well, my report should be a little shorter than yours.
Okay.
August 31 financial highlights. Discussions were held between Jeff, what's Jeff's last name? I didn't put it down here.
Pope, no.
Jeff Pope,
No.
who's the accounting manager, Jerry, Tony Gregory, our CPA, and me, regarding the Envira account, number 8020. We decided a better system and more in line with generally accepted accounting procedures is that the portion of the assessments required to fund this item will no longer be reported as contributions to the telecommunications funds, but will remain in the operating fund, and the monthly expense will continue to be reported on our income and expense statement. Since the May meeting, the general manager has worked to recast our budget to ensure we, at year end, are at or near our budgeted amounts. As of August 31st, which is 66.66% of the year, we are at 74.3% of our budgeted revenues and 73% of our budgeted expenditures, and we are in a positive position currently. Since our August meeting, the CD that matured has been replaced, and as reported in the last month, the rate of return has been lowered to about 1.85%. An interesting development was brought to my attention by Mr. Levick Bentley, a member of our Finance Committee. Currently, there is a time-sensitive offer from SunTrust Bank to invest funds, to deposit funds, and earn 2.25% interest. I do not recommend cashing out any of our current CDs, but we might think about investing an additional $225,000 in SunTrust. The issue with this is that SunTrust and BB&T recently announced plans to merge. The $225,000 would have FDIC insurance, which is per the current board policy and for investments currently, but after the merger, it would not, because all of our other deposits would come into the merged company, and we'd have more than $250,000. So we would lose that insurance, but it would be no worse than those $225,000 are today, because when they don't have insurance today, because we have more than $250,000 total.
Couldn't you name the accounts with a different name and
No,
then
the owner's the same, so the name that you put on it doesn't matter.
On the merger, can we reinvest? Do we have that opportunity?
I think you could name it different
We can look into
accounts.
that.
I don't agree with that. I do that all the time.
So I'm looking to the board for direction on this issue. Would you like me to proceed, or just leave it alone?
What's the length of term of the investment?
12 months.
I can't think in 12 months there'll be a problem.
Okay, then we will contact them and look to investing an additional $225 there.
Well, we
for
got to,
12 months.
what do you think?
1.85. And it's continuing to go down, so the next one to renew would probably get even less. Okay. There was a meeting of the Finance Committee in September, and the two issues that were discussed were the 2020 budget and the subcommittee's report on a review of the HOA credit card statements since the first of the year. The results of the report are available to the board members in the General Manager's office if any board member wishes to review it, and the results are also on the Finance Committee's report, which is posted on the website. As of August 31st, the balances in the Reserve Fund and Telecommunications Surplus Fund were $2.355 million and $1.863 million, respectively. That's all.
Thank you, Bill.
We have an added agenda item, and it's a stormwater report, and the person giving the stormwater report. Test.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah.
We have an added agenda item called Stormwater Report, and the person giving the report has some time limitations. So Jim Swigert, would you go to the microphone and provide us your report, please?
A lot of you in here probably don't understand stormwater. I didn't understand it when I arrived here 23 years ago. All I did was see it on my bill as taxes. In 2013, I got involved with checking that out, and we, Sandoval, get a 60% reduction every year as long as we pass 2 inspections. Initially it was 1, now it's 2. So from 2000, and we got back from 2010 to 2013. Some people in here got at least $450. I apologize. In different amounts. I want to give you year-to-date. We passed our inspection for March, which is the dry season, and September, the wet season, for 2020, which is next year.
How much was the second inspection?
Probably all of you got this from the city. Stormwater, $119. The average home in here in Somerville is 119. Takes 60% discount, it's $47.60. That's what you pay. You'll see that on the taxes down at the bottom when you get them later in the year, Avalon
You have it on
taxes.
here.
There are some bigger houses, it's a lot higher, but that's the average. Most homes. Somerville,
higher than
172
that.
apartments. They
What's
saved
on here?
this year $12,000. The homeowners.
It's a big
Let me
number.
give you, there's three areas I have. I have Somerville, the common area.
Here it is,
It's
18.
not the homes, that's a big area, and the residents, I'm sorry. The total from 2010 to 2020, and let me tell you this, if you all give it back to me and the HOA gives it back, we can really do good things for the clubhouse. $1,213,937. Now, do we spend money? Sure we do. If you look at your budget, you look at stormwater, we put in there for this year $15,000. We've already spent $20,000. You've seen people in this area, Riverview, catch basins, 76 of them they cleaned out or checked, $13,000. We pay Avalon engineers for the inspections, $9,000 for the 2 inspections throughout the year. Now, added on to us is a Surfside Shops, Rob, who has bought the bank, and Woody's. They're tied to our inspection. If they don't pass, we lose our 60%. So we watch that real close, and the city just did that last year, and I can't control it. Carolina, down at the other end, they do their own inspection, and they pass it on to Avalon engineers. But they're tied to us too, because their stormwater goes into our lake. Thank you all.
Couple of takeaways from Jim's report. The first one is that the inspections went from 1 to 2, of which increased our HOA budget for 2020. And also, the amount of money that we spend to keep these drains clean then reflects on a tax saving for you all and for the HOA. And we'll go next to the general manager's report.
Hey, I'm going to be pretty brief tonight. So first of all, I wanted to explain a little bit about the budget process, make sure everybody knows that hasn't already been said tonight. And we had originally anticipated 2 budget workshops, one for the Finance Committee, one for the board. And then the hope was we would have a consensus and then go ahead and go forward with a meeting, special meeting that all the homeowners would go to at a larger facility. And we had that earmarked for the about first, second week of October. We're doing, as Don had mentioned, we're doing a whole lot of due diligence with our landscape contracts. And quite honestly, for those of you who don't know, and Don alluded to it a little bit, but the contracts that we have inherited are deplorable. The actual contract terms themselves, the contracts were written by the contractor. So you can pretty much guess for yourself how those terms look. And even then, I don't think that even if I work for that company that it's a good contract. So the next thing, there's absolutely no exhibits, which Don more directly alluded to as far as trying to identify land and who's going where. I mean, normally you go out with an RFP, it includes exhibits, and then you contract and it includes firm terms. So as part of the process, not only are we looking at reducing our costs significantly, we started in earnest probably 2 weeks ago, and we've been working really hard this past week, and we still probably have a week or 2 ahead of us. Not only are we going to do that, but we are writing, the Finance Committee produced a standard RFP for us to use, and then the Landscape Committee is putting together the specifications and the exhibit, and then I will be writing the actual contract. So between those 3 entities, hopefully going into the new year, we will have an RFP, and regardless what comes of our working with our current contractors, we will be going out to bid with, again, a stronger RFP contract and exhibits, and get a better idea of what we should be paying. So again, that's not necessarily, I think a lot of people are happy with Crawford, for instance. I think they've done a great job from what I've seen and heard of what the community looked like in the past few years compared to what it looks like now, night and day in most areas. I think the areas that we're concerned about are quite honestly areas that are just not being maintained. So that's what we're dealing with, and we hope to have an announcement for the third budget workshop that we predict would be the final one, and I'm hoping that's going to be within 2 weeks to 3 weeks at the latest. And then we're looking at probably around the first week of November for the special meeting where we'll all get together as a community at a larger facility, and the board will vote on the budget at that time. Next thing I wanted to talk about was, included in that, the neighborhoods. If anybody here lives in a neighborhood that the HOA maintains the landscaping, we are really looking strong at that, and I think we're going to have some very, very good news for those folks. So if you haven't watched any of the workshops, we've already been able to take out the landscape portion of the extra fee, meaning plant material and trees, and then I believe that we're very strong on cutting in half the irrigation component from $6 to $3, and we are working our tail off on that potential, as we mentioned in one of our budget meetings, of $6 from where we started, and we're hoping to get that to $1 or $2, something like that. These are the things that we're working on. We think that within a week or two, we'll be able to come back to the budget workshop and make more public announcements, and then again, ultimately vote for that in November. Next thing I wanted to mention was Halloween. Throughout this whole process, we still have our eye there. Scott DeFilippis was really instrumental in coming in and working with me and looking at historical information, some that I didn't have through records, and we crunched the numbers, and for $3 we would probably, I think the number was like $1,000 we would lose charging $3, $4 was break even, and $1,000 surplus if we charged $5. So decision was made when we discovered that to lower the rate to $4. So it's kind of a compromise, if you will, and it's a wash then. We expect to bring that much income and have it as a wash expense. So, and there will be an advertisement on Halloween going out tomorrow morning. And just a couple other things I wanted to mention about Halloween that you will also see in the advertising going out for vehicular. First of all, someone told me they thought homeowners had to pay. This is only for guests, and it's the $4 for the wristband. The other thing, vehicular traffic. So guests between 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. will only be able to enter the Veterans Gate on foot. And so everybody will be parking. I think historically they parked in the shopping center straight out Veterans Gate. That will remain the same. So again, visitors will be required to come in on foot through Veterans Gate. Homeowners can enter as usual at Trafalgar and Pine Island. Okay, and obviously we're going to put out, we want everybody to drive slow, obviously, and be careful, because we know some people might have to come home late and drive all the way down towards Verdmont or in that area. So again, you'll get a lot more information on that tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. I believe the Communications Committee has that scheduled to go out. Bill mentioned the reforecast. I think Don did too. I reported to the Finance Committee at our budget workshop last week that we're going in the direction I wish we weren't, but we're at a negative $18,000. So basically, if you don't know, the reforecast, I take each month, the actuals come in for the previous month, I plug those into the spreadsheet, and then we use that to reforecast all of the actual months, and then we reforecast the remaining months. And those actuals really help us dial in. And I think last month I can't remember the month before, but we were around 10,000 negative, and I thought we had a chance to dip a little bit more, and we went up 8. But again, I will say, on a positive note, I do budget conservatively on the reforecast, so when I say negative 18, that's a worst case scenario type of prediction. And then if I can, my realistic internally, I don't say this a lot, but if I can get us, under 10,000, I can save the other 9,000 before year end in one way or another. And the goal obviously is to zero balances as we go into 2020. But that just speaks to how tight this year's budget is, honestly. Delinquency status. So I did a little, I know that a few months ago we approved a collection policy, and 2 months ago we started executing it and sending people warnings. And really last month, the month of August, was when it really became in effect. And so I was doing some analysis, and the best way to analyze the effectiveness of it is to go second month of the second quarter compared to second month of the third quarter, and then compare it to second month of the fourth quarter. Because obviously, as you know, there will be different sliding delinquencies, because if it's the first quarter, people might pay 10 days later, whatever. It's kind of misleading. So the statistics, second month of the second quarter, which was February, our total delinquency was $127,000. Second month of the third quarter was pretty flat. In fact, it went up. This was in May, right before we approved the delinquency. It was at 128,000, basically 127,900. And then the second month of the fourth quarter, which really shows the impact, it went down to 112. So while a lot of you might not realize it's still over 100,000, that's a pretty significant dip from that consistency. The other thing is we do have our top 5 delinquencies, for instance, this includes foreclosures and people in bankruptcy. So it can be a little bit misleading. So there's not $112,000 of people living in the community that aren't just paying us, is what my point there is. So we believe that number will continue to dip. It already went down $14,000, $15,000 in the first comparison, and we hope to do that again next month, another 14 or 15,000 on, so to where we can end up around a 3% delinquency rate would be adequate in my eyes. Last thing I would like to say is Bob Palmer, our maintenance guy, I know a lot of you know him personally. He's had an injury, and he is going to be out probably through at least October or November. So some of those of you who volunteer and use him from a service standpoint, and some of those who just know him personally, just want to let you know that he's fine. He's going to be fine. But we are looking also to bring someone in until we can get him back. So I'll probably have an announcement on that in the near future as well. And that is the end of my report.
Okay. Ad hoc committee reports. Clubhouse expansion. Improvement, that's right. Clubhouse improvement.
It was absolutely minutes before this meeting that our attorney sent a draft letter for us to read to the community. Dear fellow association members, unfortunately, your board of directors has been left with no alternative but to terminate the architect on the clubhouse renovation project for failure to perform its contractual duties. The board did not make this decision lightly. After consulting with other design professionals and legal counsel, the board concluded that the association was left with no alternative but to terminate the project architect for cause. This action was only taken after numerous overtures to the project architect, encouraging it to cure its default and to deliver to the association the services contracted for. Unfortunately, your board's efforts in this regard were unsuccessful, and the only option left was to terminate the project architect. We are optimistic that this action will ultimately prove beneficial to the community and will result in the completion of the clubhouse renovation project. At this point, Ron Spooner is going to continue on with the committee information.
I wanted to start off by asking Molly, Marilyn, and Don whether they felt this committee, the expansion... Better? Yeah. all right? Whether the expansion committee has been dragging its feet.
Absolutely not. The difficulty and why no one knows anything is this became a legal matter. And with the people that were selected from the numerous people that volunteered for that committee, the experts evaluated the plans that were submitted for bid. They evaluated how the project had been presented, and they felt that there were numerous deficiencies, and which was a reason for, you know, a project that was not in budget. So I would say absolutely not.
So what has the committee been doing? As we previously reported, this has been divided up between 3 phases. Phase 1. Phase 1 consists of reviewing contracts, the plans, and ensuring we received everything we were owed. The committee has reached out to previous members who had absolute control of this project for help. We have emailed them, knocked on their doors, and even sent certified letters. The response was no help. The lack of response has made the committee's task much more difficult and time-consuming. That said, our committee worked diligently and completed phase 1. Now we're on to phase 2. What is phase 2? Phase 2 consists of expanding our committee to multiple new residents. We will bring additional residents previously interviewed in order to assist us with the path forward. These committee members will help us communicate the needs and wishes of the community, as well as prepare new plans going forward. We will be interviewing architects and construction managers. We will be evaluating new plans and designs. We expect to do workshops that are open to the community. Most of all, we will keep the community up to date as this project develops. Naturally, there's questions. What side wins? The expansionists, the non-expansionists? You know, on one side, you have residents who voted for the expansion. Many of them would say, we voted for it, we should build it. The reality is, we could never build what was presented for the cost that was promised. This is not a Ron statement or a Molly statement or a Don or a Marilyn statement. This is a committee statement that is supported by this entire board. Would you have voted yes if the project amount was listed as 3.5 million or 4 million? I don't think so. That said, many residents who have voted expressed the fundamental need for an expansion, the need for more space for this community. As for the residents who voted against the expansion, the committees have spoken to many of these residents. We are told they voted no typically for 2 main reasons. The cost of the clubhouse did not make sense. Many felt it could not be built for the price promised. These residents were correct. The project budget was unrealistic. That did not mean these residents were against an expansion. Rather, they were against the damage that comes with a busted budget. Many residents noticed areas of the community were not being maintained as well, that the landscaping contract actually reduced the scope in order to keep the price artificially down. Also, there was virtually no deed restriction being done. These residents agreed we needed a clubhouse, but they first wanted to raise the community standard back to where it was. So despite the feeling of intense division from one side or the other, the reality is there is significant common ground here. There's no expansionists or non-expansionists. The common ground really is our clubhouse is too small. We want our property values improved. We want to be told actual costs that make sense and no salesmanship. A project that has true input from residents. A project that is done openly. A project that does not result in funds being diverted from one area of the community, such as maintenance, to support a clubhouse expansion. A clubhouse design that everybody can use. So what is the plan going forward? The plan is to address the concerns of many that voted against the project and support many of those that voted for the project. The plan is to work closely with our newest committee member, Bill Tubb, and the Finance Committee to develop a financially responsible plan not to exceed $1.9 million in construction costs. I understand there's questions. Will the expansion be smaller in scope? Yes. We simply could not build the clubhouse for the price promised. What will the size be? We don't know yet. Will we use the prior plans? Based on interviews with architects to date, it's unlikely we will be able to use any of the plans. When will we get started? Well, we have already interviewed 3 architects, and we expect to interview more. The bottom line, though, is the new expanded committee will meet with architects, construction managers, and work closely with the community and present a comprehensive, financially responsible plan for the board to then approve. Resident comments, including objections, will always be welcomed. We are working diligently and expect a detailed plan soon to be presented to the board. We appreciate your patience.
Thank you, Ron. I think he said it well. Taylor Morrison litigation.
Joy. We have been in communication with our council multiple times in the past weeks. We are working closely on consultants and evaluating phase 1, 2, and 3. I'm pleased with our progress, and I will continue to keep up to date as things progress.
Capital projects. Capital improvement projects. Like that word.
The Capital Improvement Project Committee has been working on several different things. Linda Mooney has been working on the parking lots. We are considering parking lots at the North Dog Park and also the tennis courts. And Linda she's been working on it fairly hard, and thank you for all the work you've put in, Linda. And
Go ahead.
go ahead.
All right, can everybody hear me? Usually I don't need a microphone. Okay. Hi, everyone. As Al said, I'm Linda Mooney. And as he also mentioned, the Capital Improvements Committee is proposing that funding be approved to pave the parking lot for the dog park in Phase 3 and the tennis courts. First, let me give you a little bit of background on both the dog park and the tennis court. Taylor Morrison had indicated that they would probably pave the dog park. However, they did not follow through with it. Currently, the situation is that people are parking on the grass off the Sandoval Parkway or on Maraville. A lot of people use this park throughout the day, and particularly during season, there are as many as 10 to 12 cars parking in front of the dog park or on Maraville on the grass several times a day. And this is a concern for a couple of reasons. One, and probably most importantly, is the safety issue. I've personally seen people come out of the dog park with dogs that aren't on leashes as recently as yesterday. Some have run onto the road. One day in particular, there were cars that were stopped both ways while people chased their 2 dogs that weren't on leashes. There's also no holding area as there is in the dog park in Phase 1, where there's a second gate at the entrances so that dogs in the park can easily escape while others are trying to get in. Again, I've seen some of that happen. Apparently, I stalk the dog park. We all know, my dog's not allowed there, he causes trouble. We all know that people speed on the Sandoval Parkway, so there's a big risk of people, dogs, and even vehicles being hit. Grass issues. The area in front of both of these gates is an eyesore. Due to the number of vehicles parking, the grass areas where they're parking are bare. The grass is dead. In addition, parking on the grass is causing issues with the irrigation system. Just yesterday, I saw a sprinkler head that was gushing where a car had recently parked. As far as the tennis court, essentially, there's insufficient parking at the clubhouse for events. As with the dog park, people are parking on the grass, which is causing bare spots and issues with the irrigation system. There's also currently no parking at the tennis court, so people have to park at the clubhouse lot and walk over with all that heavy tennis equipment. Paving this lot would essentially solve both those problems. As a result of these situations, the Capital Improvements Committee was tasked with getting rough estimates for paving these two areas to present to the board to request further funding for consideration. The committee, and by the way, Scott and Al are both on this committee, as is Todd Frey. The committee met with two vendors. One of them was Seton Paving and Site Work, which is known as SPS, and Acme, which sounds like a Roadrunner cartoon company, who provided rough estimates for paving both lots, as well as giving us some design options. Although moving forward will require engineering drawings and official requests for cost proposals, or RFP, what we've done to date gives us something to start with so the board has an idea of the design and costs. Now, I'll talk about the design and costs in just a minute, but just a couple of things to note. The designs that we came up with are for maximum spaces with minimum square footage. So essentially, we wanted to get the most parking spaces that we could with the least amount of space used so we could keep cost at a reasonable level as well as keep green space and make it look aesthetically pleasing. Also related to cost, we looked at paving the dog park and the tennis court as a joint project because both companies were willing to give us a better price, and it's more cost effective to pave both lots at the same time rather than separately. As far as the dog park layout, the board members have a copy of this, and I think Don Wells drew that up. I can kind of hold it up for you. Essentially, if you're looking at the Sandoval Parkway and facing the dog park, you would enter the dog park parking lot through, you would turn right or left depending on where you're coming from, and there would be parking spaces here. What we intended to do was to split the dog park into a big dog park and a small dog park. I'm also one of the liaisons for Lambay, and I'm one of the liaisons for Lambay, and we had talked with other liaisons and talked with residents, and a lot of people said they weren't using the dog park because they had little dogs and there was no place for the little dogs to go where the big dogs wouldn't bother them. So people would enter here. There would be a holding area for large dogs and small dogs so that they couldn't escape. And for people that wanted to use the whole park, if there's no little dogs around, you would also have that option. So we're trying to make that as flexible as possible. Sorry, I couldn't upload that into the presentation. I'm not that IT savvy. So as far as the number of spaces, we'd have 11 spaces, including one handicap space. We'd also close the Maraval gate where people can currently go in with their dogs. So there'd be only one entrance, and that would be to discourage people from parking on the grass on Maraval. Okay, as far as the tennis court, we're proposing that paving be on the east side of the tennis court, and I do have a picture of that in a minute. There would be 25 parking spaces, including one handicap space, which would allow for parking for people to use the tennis court, as well as overflow parking for events at the clubhouse. And essentially, this picture is, if you're standing in the clubhouse kind of circle area, it would be on the east side of the tennis court. There's this grassy area behind the sign where the parking lot would be. As far as the estimated costs, based on the estimates we got, we think an engineering design would cost approximately $20,000. Paving for both lots would be approximately $70,000. Fencing, we don't have an estimate for. We'd have to do some fencing at the dog park to allow for the splitting of the dog park to two spaces. That's approximately $5,000. And then we have some miscellaneous fees like permitting fees, landscaping if needed, and we estimated that at $5,000. So the estimated total cost would be $100,000 for both paving projects. As far as next steps, we're asking the board for approval to move forward with the engineering drawings and initiate a formal request for proposal so we can get firmer pricing. and we would go with 3 vendors for paving and fencing. Once we would get that information, we would present that back to the board on the actual cost estimates for funding. And that is the end of the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Did all the board members look at their board pack and see the proposal from Avalon Engineering for the engineering study? Before we can do anything, we have to have a city approval, and in order to get city approval, we have to have an engineering study. And the cost for that is the same for each location, and they can't be combined because they're not in the same plot area. So that's why the fee is fairly expensive, because we're actually doing 2 costs for 2 limited site plan evaluations, of which each would be applied for and permitted. In order to know exactly how this is going to go and to make sure that the permitting gets approved by the city, Avalon Engineering has done practically all the engineering here in Sandoval, and they're respected by the city. And my recommendation, if we want to consider going ahead with the parking project, we should approve the engineering study to get that started. I'll also say of this funding that we're talking about here, this is the beginning of the clubhouse expansion, our clubhouse improvements, because we are now increasing our parking so that we will have some more parking spaces available for us, and we can utilize that right now too. So I see this as a step forward. Does anyone else like to make a comment?
No, I think we need to move forward. It's something that needs to be done, and so I'll make a motion to approve both projects.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I second.
Do we have any other discussion? Anyone have any questions, discussion?
I just wanted to add that once we do get this additional parking over by the tennis courts, I know there's been comments that we are critically short of handicap parking up close to the club. There's no reason why we can't convert 2 or 3 of the existing parking spaces close to the club into additional handicap spots.
Sure.
Correct.
I think that's a reasonable.
Good
reasonable
addition.
thought, so.
Is your motion to approve the entire project or
Yes.
just the engineering?
No, well,
I think we need to approve the engineering study, and then once we get that back, and then we'll get bids for the other portion of the project. I think we'd have to do it in a couple steps. I mean, if it turns out not to be 100,000, then, we'd have to reevaluate whether we can do it.
Okay, but we're
we
approving
got
the
some
full.
temporary, some preliminary bidding to come up with these figures.
So what
So
we're
the way
voting
I
on
heard
is
the
to
motion-
approve the 100,000.
Is to approve the
to
engineering
approve
study
the
at 20.
engineering
Just
study
the
for
20
both
then.
Right.
projects.
Okay.
18,950.
So the motion Marilyn made is for the committee to move forward with the engineering study.
Okay.
I'll
We need a
second.
Okay. All in favor? Then we will go over that proposal. There's one thing on there I'd like to change, and I'll talk to you about it. Okay. Thank you, Linda. Now, are we going to talk about the next item, or is that all you're talking about?
We're in the process of trying to pull that up now for the wall,
Okay.
for the perimeter fencing.
I can't find PowerPoint.
I just can't.
Yeah, damn windows.
It just won't do it.
Sorry about that. This isn't my computer. Oh.
I tried forwarding it
I thought she
myself,
came early, so we'd have
and
this
it
one.
won't. Yeah, maybe.
It's okay.
Although sometimes my,
Where's Todd? Where's Todd Fry? Where's Todd Fry?
That's you.
I'm on. Sunshade. Okay, we're going to have the Sunshade report.
Okay, since we last met, there has been a few things that have happened. We have entered in a formal contract with CoreCat. We have picked out the colors for the sunshade. It was basically the blue on blue, which they highly recommended to kind of keep within the theme of what we have out there, not be intrusive to the existing residents. And next step is going to be permitting. We're just waiting on the city again. So if we know anybody on our board who works for the city who could expedite the permitting process.
It takes time.
It certainly does. So that's where we stand. We're just basically at permitting.
Okay. Are they manufacturing anything, or are they waiting on permitting?
Once it was signed, they start the manufacturing and
Okay.
receive the money. So it's ready to go once they get the paper.
Okay. Okay, the ARC subcommittee appointment.
The following 5 residents applied for the ARC subcommittee overseeing submittal of trash receptacle applications. We expected a complete influx of them. I recommend the board make a motion appointing the following 5 residents to the ARC subcommittee: Sandy Meyer, Monica Evanson, Christine Bechtel, Janice Pari, and Frank Marzullo.
That's
I will-
is that the Oscar squad?
That's the
Thank
Oscar.
you, Molly.
I so move that the acceptance of the individuals mentioned by Jerry be accepted as members of the slang term of the Oscar squad of the subcommittee of the ARC.
Okay, we have a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor of the Oscar squad by name?
Aye.
Okay, they are duly appointed. Okay, the ARC committee appointment.
There were 2 residents that applied for the ARC committee, taking the place of Grady Stevens. It was Chris Bechtel and Francis McKinnon, and the ARC committee is in the process of interviewing both of those folks, so we will be having an announcement soon on that. No board action tonight.
Okay, records inspection policy.
The association recently received an open records inspection request. This is subject to legislation by the state. As such, I requested our attorney to draft a policy overseeing inspections of public records. I recommend the board make a motion adopting the attached policy regarding inspection of association records. And would you like me to
Yes.
read?
We all have that in the board pack, but I think everyone, for the residents, need to know what the
Okay.
policy is.
Records defined. Official records are also referred to as herein as records available for inspection, or those designated by the Act as the official records of the association. Records available. No information other than as defined above shall be available for inspection unless the association determines it to be in the best interest of the association to make such information available for inspection. Persons entitled to inspect. Owners have the right to inspect the records of the association as permitted by law. Tenants may inspect certain records as provided by law. All reference in these rules to owner will include record title owners and an owner's authorized rep and tenants or other authorized representatives where applicable. Inspection. An owner desiring to inspect records shall submit a written request by certified U.S. mail return receipt requested, therefore to the association at the official address of the association pursuant to the most online records of Florida State Secretary of State. Requests by fax transmission, electronic email, hand delivery, regular U.S. mail, or other means do not comply with these rules. Verbal requests do not comply with these rules. The written request must specify the particular records the owner desires to inspect, including pertinent dates or time periods. The specification of the particular records must be sufficiently detailed to permit the association to retrieve the exact records requested. An owner's inspection request shall be deemed received by U.S. certified mail on the date that the receipt card was signed by the association. Inspection of records shall be restricted solely to those records designated in the written request for inspection and shall be conducted solely by the owner signing the inspection request or his or her authorized rep. No inspection of any other records shall be permitted. If more than one owner desires to inspect the same records, the association may require that such inspections are conducted at different times, provided that co-owners of a parcel may inspect records together. If an owner has designated an authorized rep, either the owner or the authorized rep may inspect the records. However, both parties may not inspect the records together. However, this shall not preclude an owner from inspecting the records with the owner's rep, if such representative is a CPA licensed to practice in Florida or an attorney at law, of records per calendar month. Any request submitted more frequently shall be null and void and need not be acknowledged by the association. Inspections of records shall be conducted at the office where the association's records are maintained, or at such other location as may be designated by the association. Records must be made available for inspection in Lee County or within 45 miles of the community. No owner shall remove original records from the location where the records are inspected. No marks or alterations shall be made on original records. Records shall generally be made available for inspection by the association on or before the 10th working day subsequent to receipt by the association of the written request for inspection. This time frame may be extended upon agreement of the owner or for good cause. In addition, this time frame shall be extended in the event the records are so voluminous or otherwise time the date and place for such inspection. Inspections shall be made only during normal association business hours or during the normal business hours of the location of inspection if other than the association office. For the purpose herein, working day means Monday through Friday, exclusive of federal holidays, in which the office of the association or office where the records are being made available for inspection is closed. For purposes herein, normal business hours shall be between the hours of 8 and 4 on all a working day. No owner shall be entitled to inspect records for more than 8 hours cumulatively in any one calendar month. At the request of either the association or the owner, inspections may be broken up into segments, provided that 3 inspections visits per calendar month shall be the maximum number of sessions in a calendar month and 8 hours maximum cumulative inspection time. If at or subsequent to an inspection, an owner desires to have a copy of a record, the owner shall designate in a separate writing which record or portion thereof for which a copy is desired, or in the alternative, shall designate such record by use of a clip or tab upon the pages desired. Not more than one copy of each record requested shall be provided. If the location where the records are being inspected or stored has a copy machine capable of making copies of the records designated, and the owner has requested copying of 25 or less pages of records, then copies of the records shall be in a copy machine at the location where the records are being inspected or stored capable of making copies of the records designated. The association may send the records out for copying by an outside source, such as a commercial copying company, or make the copies at the location of the records, but available for later pickup. If copied at the location where the records are kept, copies in excess of 25 pages shall be made available for pickup by 5 p.m. within 3 working days from the date of inspection, the day of inspection not counting and calculating this deadline. Copies made by an outside source shall be available as soon as copying service can reasonably pick up, copy, or return the records to the location where the records are being inspected or stored. Photocopies will be available at the place records are kept or produced for inspection. Owners requesting copies must arrange for pickup of the records. The association has no obligation to mail or otherwise deliver the copies to any place. Continue?
No. Yeah, I'd finish it for the record.
Legally, we have to, don't we? I think legally we have to.
I think you have to read it.
The association shall allow an owner to use a portable device, including a smartphone, tablet, portable scanner, or any other technology capable of scanning or taking photographs to make an electronic copy of the official records in lieu of the association's providing the owner with a copy of such records. The association may not charge an owner for the use of a portable device. I'm getting close. An owner shall pay reasonable expense of copying. In the event of the copies are made by the association, the cost shall be 25 cents per page. If copies are made by outside vendors, actual costs shall be charged to the owner. Payment in advance for the cost of copies shall be required. In addition to the foregoing, the association shall impose fees to cover the costs required for personnel to retrieve and copy the records if the time spent retrieving and copying the records exceeds a half hour. Personnel costs will be charged at $20 per hour. Personnel costs shall not be charged for records requests that result in the copying of 25 or fewer pages. No copy of a record shall be made unless and until payment for the copy is received. If records are kept on computer format, the association may print such records to paper. The association may but shall not be obligated to allow owners to access the association's computer system. If the association provides access to records through a computer supplied by the association or the office in which record access is being conducted, the person inspecting the records shall not email the records inspected to any other computer, person, or email account, review or other content or programs on said computer, nor otherwise in any fashion download, forward, or otherwise transmit or manipulate the data he or she reads during the inspection of the records by review on electronic mail, internet, or computerized format. The association may comply with its obligation to make records available for inspection by providing them to the owner by electronic mail, the internet, or making them available in a computerized format readable with customary programs used in computers of consumers. If, however, an owner provides the association with written notice that they do not have access to a computer, the association must supply the records in paper format. For purposes hereof, an owner and the owner's authorized rep shall be considered one person. If inspection is required by any person other than a record owner of the parcel, said request shall not be recognized by the association unless and until the record of owners of the parcel designates such person in writing as their authorized rep, or unless such person is an attorney at law admitted to practice in the state of Florida. All persons inspecting or requesting copies of records shall conduct themselves in a courteous manner and shall not interfere with the normal operations of the association office and the duties of their personnel or the office where the records are otherwise inspected or copied, nor the duties of their personnel. The association office or office of inspection may assign, last page, a staff person or other person to assist in inspection, and all requests for further assistance in copying during inspection shall be directed to that staff person. Any violation of these rules may result in the immediate suspension of the inspection until such time the violator agrees in writing to comply. Any request for inspection not complying with these rules need not be honored. The board may take whatever appropriate legal action is available against any person who fails to comply with these rules, including but not limited to the levy of fines or suspension of use rights, subject to the requirements of law. Nothing in these rules shall be construed as a limitation or restriction upon any of the association's rights or remedies, or act as an election of remedies. All rights and remedies available to the association shall be cumulative. The president of the association or the manager, under the direction of the president, has the authority to interpret and implement the provisions of these rules and make decisions and judgments arising hereunder without need for board approval on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, end of story.
I move we adopt the policy that was just read.
Okay, we have
I
a
will
motion
second.
to move. We have a second to the motion. Do we have any discussion? Do we have a vote? All in favor? Okay, the policy is adopted.
We're ready.
Okay, we're ready for the next presentation.
She went to sleep.
All right. You can do slides. Yeah. Great work here to get this up and run by everybody. So the committee was tasked with looking at the perimeter fence since we do have some issues, as you can see with the pictures for the board members and for the audience. We do have plywood in certain areas from either storm damage or human damage. And there was some significant damage to the perimeter wall. I won't call it a wall because it really isn't a wall. It's just a concrete fence along the Verdmont area with degradation of the upright supports and the rebar coming out. So We did the inspection. These are just some of the pictures as we go along with our inspection. And it just shows you the uprights and the deteriorated condition that they are in, where the rebar has rusted, swelled, and popped the concrete. And again, for the board members, we're not exactly sure whether this was through water intrusion or what, but again, we do have serious issues with the perimeter fence. Again, just a few more pictures in the state of degradation that they are. And then at some point in time, those uprights hold these panels in. Once the uprights fail, the panels will fall out. Here we have a drone view of the perimeter fence underneath the canopy of trees, and that's going to be significant to the board as we get into a couple of the proposals that you will see. So what you're seeing is here, you really cannot see that wall because of the vegetation and the canopy of the mature trees. This is Verdmont to the right, Hayden Lane, and the shops to the left. And I'd like to thank Tristan from Brightside for doing our drone footage. But again, we're about, for the board members who haven't seen, it's about a little over 1,600 linear feet of concrete fence along that Verdmont section from the corner of Surfside all the way to the main gate. And we are lucky enough to have some mature trees providing shade and coverage, but as you can see, board, when we get into this, it's going to show you the predicament that we're going to be in with one of the vendors. And we're getting to the cul-de-sac at Verdmont, and then we are just going to get to the corner of where the old sales center was. And then they would turn, and we would be looking in a westerly direction, finishing that line where the sales center used to be and the end of Verdmont and the Veterans Gate. Okay, so I just gave you a great aerial view of what we have. So some of the options that we had, which we looked at, and probably, if not everyone on our committee had gone out to these different sites to see the materials that were out there. In Tortuga, they used Sunstate EcoStone Simtech fencing, and basically what that is, you know, they're calling it an eco. It's made from a proprietary blend of polyethylene. It's basically a plastic fence made to look like bricks and stackable like what we have. So again, you know, all of these things that we're going to see, they're going to meet the wind rating of 150 miles an hour for our area. They're impact resistant, fade resistant, and all of those things, but they're inherently different from each other, as you'll see. This is a plastic product in Tortuga. How tall is the fence? 8 foot. Existing and 8 foot proposed. So this is what they have along their existing, and it looks exactly like stone. So this is basically what they're going to do. Removal of the concrete, they're going to grade and fill, and they're going to provide backfill, cleanup, disposal, and the product. It's going to be the entire wall replacement. That's a failure from the main gate all the way to Surfside. Over 1,600 linear feet of that. So Coastal Concrete is the stackable system which we have right now. Coastal Concrete actually bought the molds from the original company during Bonita Bay days that installed that. Basically what they are is they're the uprights that we have, and then there's panels that they slide down in, concrete panels, that you get your stackable fence system. And again, they're all engineered to meet the wind resistance. They do come with an assortment of colors to color match if we want to, and that's going to be integrated into the product itself, the concrete product, during the construction of that, or the forming of the concrete. The third vendor that we had, which is Permacast, and this is the only company that is a wall. This is a 5,000 PSI poured concrete wall, something that we would see maybe down at a southern border or something. That's basically, it's really impenetrable. It is concrete top to bottom, but for the board's edification here, this is a panel that needs to be raised into place, where the other ones are stackable concrete. So there is a significant difference in the installation process. But again, both of them are going to be able to withstand the wind loads for this Zone B, I believe we're in. Yep, we're going to get to that also. So that was just a brief overview for the board as to what's out there, and now we'll just briefly touch on the Somerville section when we went out to that, which we don't have slides for, but there's a 265-foot section where Somerville fence is, and our proposal is going to be to continue with a concrete product for 85 of that 265 feet, and then another 180 feet of 6-foot chain link fence to meet up with the existing chain link fence, which would be on the western side looking south as you're going out the exit. And I think Somerville is probably going to be amenable to that, since the majority of that chain link fence is going to be behind a very mature hedge line. So the good news is we looked at the Somerville wall or fence along Veterans, and that wall is in very, very good shape. A few board members had gone out there, and along with the vendors, and there is a considerable life expectancy left in that. Again, that's the conundrum we're in as to why ours failed at the Verdmont area, and theirs is still in good shape. A couple of the things that we believe is the direct impingement of sprinkler systems on that wall constantly degrading and getting in and infiltrating the concrete, causing the failure. It's a pretty good hypothesis, if you will, but there's no real reason for that we have found. But if we do go with any other product, we're recommending that we meet with our irrigation vendors and we go out there and we make sure that the sprinkler heads are not spraying on any of the products, whether it's a vinyl, concrete, or other, so we will get a maintenance with that. Previously, that wall has been power washed, and I think that kind of degraded the life expectancy of that wall. So with the initial bids that we had gotten, in your packet, you will see that Permacast has come up with a bid to do the concrete wall, and that's going to be providing 1,645 linear feet and 180 linear feet of vinyl-coated fence. So basically, in your packet, you're going to see how it's broken down with what they're going to be providing for us and the addendums. So the pricing you have total there is $202,870, and that $870, $202,870. Which one is that? That's the Permacast full concrete drop-in slab type. Sure, you're not going to be able to tell the difference. They look the same. They're all molded the same. Yep, that's what we have.
What's the warranty on that?
That is the coastal concrete. That's what we have now. And if you go back, forward. Yep. And that's the Permacast. Again, you can color them to whatever color that you want.
Where was that total in the three estimates?
That total is the highest of all of the totals. And you will see, in addition to the coastal concrete bid, they did not have the latest 265 linear feet on the Somerville side, and that's an additional $11,403 as a rough estimate. The vendor was on the East Coast, so he couldn't give the exact numbers. But again, as you'll see, the difference in permacast and the difference to coastal concrete is about a $35,000 difference, permacast being the more expensive of the two. We are not on the page. I'm just talking to giving the board the information
Scott,
here.
is there a difference in warranty?
That is a question that I would have to look under the warranty section. I can get an answer for you that, Ron, on all three products as to what they're, and Al might have that, digging that up there. But here's the, as we were going through the project, and I know the president was out there, and Ron, you were out there, Al was out there. I think all of us were out there at some point in time. And while we're cognizant of the fact that we need to take the existing wall down and install the existing wall, there's some intricacies with all of the products out there. The permacast, since it is a solid 8-foot by 5-foot panel that has to be lifted to approximately 15 feet and then dropped into place. The problem we have, as you saw with the drone view, we have a canopy of trees that have the potential to be severely cut back to get that panel in. Also, what permacast is saying to us is they require an additional 25 feet from where the product would go out to have access for their equipment. So essentially, what the permacast product would do is the existing landscape that we have along that wall would be gone to some extent, to a vast extent, to install that wall to get that in. And that's a concern that, you know, the board's going to have to think about when moving forward. Now, the coastal product, which are individual stackable ones, they don't need that 15-foot clearance. They just need about 2 feet to get that last panel up and over. When I spoke to the vendor, he said they need about 4 to 5 feet off that wall to get a small skid steer or loader in there where they could take the product and put that in and back that out. So there's a significant disruption between the two products, and that's something for the board to consider, you know, incurring possibly additional costs to re-landscape that area. So those are the 3 bids that we had received, and again, the permacast is the most expensive in the concrete products, with coastal being the least expensive in the concrete products. So if there are any other questions from the board or...
Scott, I have a question. What area did you say in Somerville will actually be replaced on the wall? And also,
Yep.
and the wall between Surfside and going up to the main entrance, is that whole wall by Vermont completely bad, that the whole thing has to be redone?
I would say yes, except there is one section, and you will notice there's a section of permacast wall that the board had installed there. I believe it's 2 sections, Don, right? Or is it one 5-foot section?
Two
that
sections.
Two
2 5-foot
sections
sections.
of that permacast. And the rest of the wall is in that state of decline.
Where in Somerville, though?
Yep, so if you're exiting the development, Somerville will be on the right-hand side. So from the right side exit gate starts a tiered system. So starting there, that would be replaced. As you're coming, then you'd be going south on that wall. So it's going to be about 85 feet of that existing wall. After that 85 feet, we're going to transition into chain link fence to meet up with the rest of your Somerville's chain link fence as it kind of goes up the hill towards the exit.
So you're taking the wall out and putting chain link fence on there, or you're just putting the chain link fence as you make the turn to come around the other side of the wall?
Where there is existing 265 feet of concrete fencing. Right. So we are replacing that with 85 feet of concrete fencing, and the remainder of that 265, 180 feet, will be chain link fence, because if you go there, There's red tip cocoa plums that are about 8 feet tall, and on the other side, there's fire bush that are just totally covering that wall. So really, you would take that cost per square foot of that wall, which is $80 to $90 per foot, and it's being hidden behind the bushes. So the stuff that's hidden already, we're going to replace that with matching chain link fence that you have. But the spot that you can see that's degraded, that will be replaced with a new type of whatever the board decides, plastic, stackable concrete, or concrete.
So where you're talking about chain link, it's all behind the berm, so the berm would provide sound barrier
Correct.
to Somerville.
Correct. Exactly. The berm will provide the sound barrier, and the plant material will also do its aesthetically blocking any visual from there, because you can't see the wall as it stands right now. Yes, sir.
I'd just make a comment that Al had expressed. The two different materials, the concrete fence, the coastal fence with the stackable pieces, is about 1,000 PSI. If you hit that with a baseball bat, you'll break the wall. The other fence, the permacast fence, is 3,000 to 4,000.
5,000.
And then I saw here 5,000. So if you hit that with a baseball bat, I think you'll break your teeth or you'll break the bat.
Yeah.
So Ron was alluding to the warranty. I think that the wall, we'll never have to do anything to the wall.
I spoke with both companies, and the coastal company, he alluded to that his wall might last 30 years. That's the same wall that we have now that is, I don't know, what is it, 15 years, 16 years old, and it's worthless. You know, I would be ashamed if we would replace that, spend $200,000 replacing that wall and have to do it again in another 15 years. The downside, well, I guess the upside of that is there would probably be less landscape damage using that fence. However, I'm pretty sure they're not going to sign an agreement saying that they will not do any damage to our landscaping. Same way with coastal. The coastal salesman, when I talked to him, he said, plan on removing 100% of the shrubs on the far side of that wall. In other words, take it down to nothing. And then the trees would probably have to be trimmed some for them to put it up. However, that's probably a 50, 60-year wall, because it's a solid.
I have another question. The part of the wall that failed were the vertical posts.
Part of the wall that failed is the vertical posts. And
So why couldn't you buy the permacast posts and put the other slots in, and then you'd have the best of both worlds? You wouldn't
and
lose
you
the
would
landscape.
you would have no warranty on that whatsoever.
Well, the posts
No.
are the posts are what failed. I would say 90% of those vertical panels are fine. Where the vertical panels broke is when the H post, the vertical post broke, and then the other pieces fell to the ground.
Well,
I do know
was-
that during the hurricane,
Yeah, a tree
it broke the horizontals.
Right.
I was going to bring a chunk. Actually, I have it in the back of my van outside. But I went to where you repaired the wall, the last break, and there was one solid piece. And as I went to pick it up, it just snapped in half.
So,
So
There's-
that shows you how weak this.
right, the material is.
You got to hold it vertically. If you hold it horizontally, it folds. You know, it just went like that.
And
Wow.
there's got to be a reason why Somerville's wall is in a much better condition than the Verdmont wall, and I don't think we'll ever understand that reason why. It
Well,
could be again
You'll
towards.
see some of that wall by Country Club when you're coming westbound. It's another community,
Yep.
has the very same wall, and
But
you
I
know,
think
it's multicolors. It just doesn't look compared to the wall that's on the opposite side, which the city just spray painted. I mean, that looks like that'll be there forever.
I think the wall in Somerville has been protected by shrubbery. And I don't know what that does, but if you go back, the section that we're thinking in Somerville of replacing with chain link fence, that's
180 feet.
180 feet. I went and looked at that today. That's in better shape than Vermont's.
Yeah.
Now, whether, it's probably not financially feasible to leave that 100, I mean, it might last another 6, 8 years, but that 180 feet, as long as they're here, they might as well do it.
There's one place in there where the rebar's showing in that, on one side or the other. I can't tell you which side,
Yeah,
but there's
but
one that's
apparently
broken.
the landscaping does protect the wall.
Yeah, I think it must be, again, a water issue, and those are things that, power washing it probably wasn't a good idea to do on a maintenance thing, and I'm sure, whatever,
Snow and ice.
whatever,
Snow and ice.
structure we go with, there's gonna be a maintenance procedure that we would adhere to, which probably hasn't been done before.
I've got a question
As,
for.
as of yet, we do not have an estimate of what the landscaping costs would be to remove and then ultimately replace.
I've got a question for the treasurer. This is from the reserve, not operating, and does this have any effect on our operating funds and our budget?
None whatsoever.
None whatsoever. This, for everyone, the question that Ron asked, the funding source for this wall is from reserve funds. So it's not affecting our operation budget at all. This is a replacement and repair item, and that's why we have reserves. And the amount allocated for replacing the fence is $380,000, and we're talking here $200. I would make one comment about the landscape. If the landscaping that's being removed is on the Hayden Lane side, how many go down Hayden Lane and look at the landscape? Hardly anybody drives on that road. And if you could replace it with something real small it's inexpensive, it doesn't matter how long it takes it to grow. You've satisfied the city requirement of replacing the landscape.
Less to maintain.
And really, it's a less to maintain. You don't have to trim them.
I ride my bicycle down there.
Okay.
But
You want me to give you a magazine with a pretty picture?
Al, Al was thinking outside the box, and thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.
Al was thinking outside the box, and sometimes when you do that, you can come up with some very solution-solving scenarios here. Who says that we have to replace the wall in the exact position that it is in now? Just think about this. If you move the wall closer to the curb on Hayden Lane, because we own Hayden Lane, I have gone back and forth numerous times there in the past couple of weeks to look at this. The vegetation on the Hayden Lane side of that wall is lush and glorious. The vegetation on the Vermont side, where the homes look at it, is sparse and not nearly as attractive. If the wall were moved closer to the curb, then you would not need to take any tree damage at all. They need to have an area to stage. That can be Hayden Lane. We own Hayden Lane. We can control the traffic back and forth while they're doing that. So now if you move the wall close to the curb, you could build the wall before you take the other one down, which means that the residents of Sandoval would have a security issue taken care of before they take down the old wall. The old wall could then come down on the Vermont side, and now the residents are going to have the lush vegetation to look at that is currently unseen by them on the outside of the Hayden wall, or on the Hayden Lane side of the wall. So I thought it was one of those light bulb moments when Al mentioned it, and I thought, wow, that makes such sense. Nobody says we have to keep it right in the exact spot. Now, it may cost us a few more panels, because there is a small section when you turn from Surfside down you're going to have some tree issues there. But that's a very small section compared to the rest of it. I think it's worth considering.
And that box kind of migrated over to my house this morning, and I went out to look and to measure, and you're right, there are areas where we could bring that existing wall out from the tree canopy, which is going to be about 15 feet. and that'll preserve the majority of it, because at last count, and I was talking to Al, just rough count, I counted 525 pieces of vegetation. So if you look at, $20 to replace them, you're talking $50,000, $75,000 to replace the existing vegetation. So the only thing that would preclude from that was just, again, we'd have to rely on our sitting board member who's an expert with the city, as to what our setback would have to be from Hayden Lane. Other than that, it's a great idea, if we could meet that setback and
You
put
can
the...
meet the requirement. It's
Yeah,
certainly,
even if
think
it's just in certain areas to
yeah.
minimize that damage and the cost
yeah.
associated.
To me, putting my personal opinion, and there's 7 of us on this board, so we all have an opinion on this, but the fact that we would be replacing with a product that you could take a baseball bat to and crack the panels, because it does have a foam core, am I correct?
No, it's a solid.
It's a solid core inside.
But they do have pieces of mesh, or we're not
Yeah.
sure exactly what they.
It-
It's almost like a crushed
Something. It's
seashell
not
material.
It's not poured concrete.
I don't think the coastal does. I don't think that, the coastal product has got 2 pieces of wire, one across the top, one across the bottom in the panels. I believe the permacast has got fiberglass
fibers.
particles in it.
Yeah, if you look at
for
when
strength.
a piece broke in half, you'll see stringy, shelly kind of. It's not like you said, a poured typical concrete piece. Again, yes, that's a superior product, and it's going to be a board decision. But the baseball bat is a great analogy, a car or whatever. But somebody could take a pair of snips and snip through a cyclone fence too. So it's a matter of, I think it's not a security issue as more of it's a longevity issue and a cost benefit for the community.
Well, it looks like the linear feet price of the permacast fence is $80. So if you moved out 5 feet, you're talking $400 or $500.
It's
So we're not,
negligible.
to increase the length of the wall,
Yeah,
once it's
What do
not,
you
it's
feel?
insignificant.
right, exactly. Yeah.
Well,
you
you're
think-
also, you're saying it should last 60 years. Our current wall, our reserve study said 30 years max.
Right.
So if we spend, what, $20,000 extra, we
35,
cut,
yeah.
For
we
double
we
life.
double our life, so we cut our reserve requirement in half, which is
We
currently
won't have to be putting money away for that for a
$372,000.
long time, or just a little bit each year.
And you should
Absolutely.
never have to touch the landscaping again.
Yeah, again, preliminarily, that's why, we did as much time. I mean, all of us who were on there, even people who weren't on it, spent a lot of time out there in the blazing heat looking, and people who even aren't, went out and looked too. And
Well, thinking about the landscape, I don't think since the back of the parking lot is what it's looking at. I think if you could put it the minimum landscape that would meet the city requirements, I don't think it needs to be anything lush and fancy or anything. So
Not at
just
all.
figure out what would be the least economical to satisfy that city requirement.
I'm sure there would have to be some extra permitting or whatever probably to move that fence. And I know they do engineering soil studies for the compaction of the soil. I know even when they're taking out the old wall, they cannot use the same hole that they pull the post out of. They drill a new virgin hole because oftentimes the older hole does not pass inspection, and all these walls have to be inspected as they're constructed.
I doubt they had to pack
Yeah.
the ground to put in that fence in the first place.
yeah,
So,
that's what they
you
even
know.
say. I mean, compaction rate, it's
Sand
been
is-
there for...
I mean, something has to be considered.
Sand is
Yeah.
pretty tight, yeah.
And one thing also is, when we looked at it, access from Hayden Lane versus Verdmont, and we decided, even though, it would be most beneficial to do all of the access on Hayden Lane, so we didn't disturb Verdmont folks with trucks and materials like that. So that's going to be, even though it's probably our most disruptive could be the most disruptive for landscaping, it would be the least disruptive for the residents with trucks.
What side of the wall are the trees on?
They
Both.
are-
Both?
Yeah, that's
Both
the
sides.
issue. Again, that was a Bonita Bay, super duper landscape job, and to do a 15-foot vertical, those trees would look like, something going down a highway where the as plunder, somebody comes through and mutilates them. So, but that's a great idea to explore, and we could even meet with, the vendor and say, hey, what's your opinion on, let's move it out. And there are areas, like you said, where we're going to be closer to Hayden Lane, but again, that cost of losing 10 or 15 shrubs versus all of them.
Well, the other point being, yes, it will be, once the new wall would be in, it will be disruptive for a short period to take the old wall out. But that vegetation on the Verdmont side that the houses look at isn't nearly as comprehensive and lush as it is on the outside of the wall.
And one
So
good-
it would just be a win-win for those residents.
It would be. One thing the vendor did say when we met with them is they will not go in on the Verdmont, Hayden Lane area and take the complete fence down. They would do it in sections. So they might do 500 feet one day, 500 feet the next day, and 500 feet. So there will be very little downtime of an opening between the new fence or wall and the existing. So that was something we thought that was important too to the residents to know, that it's not going to be all taken down at once and take them a week to finish, and then you have open area. So that was a plus. This is for the board.
I would think
Hey, I don't think
any
those
cost
comments are
incurred to
appropriate.
move the wall is worth it to save the trees,
Yeah, I agree.
just
I
pure
think
and
so.
simple.
Well, I make a motion that we go with the permacast, the stronger fence, and that we look into if the possibility of moving the wall closer to the curb line of Hayden Lane to preserve the trees.
Okay. I would add to the motion that at 203,000, we should make the bid 250. Not the bid, we should make the allocation at 250, so we'll have money for unexpected trimming trees, putting in landscape, if you think that figure is adequate. And I
Then
defer
will
to...
I need to make an amendment to the
Well,
motion?
let's just talk about
The additional coverage for
what
that.
do you think we should try to approve?
I think 250 would be
If everyone would please give us the courtesy of discussing the matter. Yeah, we can't compete. Thank you. Sorry.
I think that would be a prudent number to put in there at 250. That would give us wiggle room for additional tree trimming and or whatever additional landscaping that might come in. So I think that would be a good thing. And I would also maybe just predicated on the city allowing us with the setbacks that's required from Hayden Lane or whatever.
Do you have comments on that financially, Bill?
I think we should, if we go to 250, we should say that money is earmarked for the fence only.
Oh, absolutely.
And because we've had a history in the past
Well-
of reserves being used for other things, so if we don't spend it, the money stays in reserves.
My recommendation on RFPs is after the RFP has been completed, that there be a financial reconciliation of what you spent and what's left over.
Okay.
In fact, when we did our signs, Al and I did, I submitted that to the office so that you knew what we spent with every invoice. So there was no question about it. Okay.
So I will amend my motion to indicate that we will spend no more than $250,000, and that any monies remaining shall go back into the reserve fund.
I think that's a foregone assumption, but if you want to put it in that, I have no problem
I'll
with that.
amend my second, but just for clarification, we're talking about the $202,000 bid, not the $212,000
We're
bid,
talking
correct?
about the 202.
Okay.
202,870.
Now, does someone need to,
Included up to 250.
Right.
So for trimming the trees, landscaping, other permitting above and beyond,
And,
additional wall if we move it.
right. Okay.
Okay, are we,
Not this
any
one,
other
yeah.
discussion? Then we have a vote, all in favor of proceeding with this? Okay. Okay,
can't vote.
thank you for being patient. That was an important project.
Don, we're still on capital projects? I've
Yep,
got
yes,
two things.
okay.
Really quick, a lot of people have been asking where the heck are our street lights? I called the factory today. We can expect the fixtures, which are the lights that go on top of the street poles, November 4th. And the actual light poles, they're scheduled November 25th. So it's taken a long time. This is the exact same poles we have throughout the community. We've ordered 7 of them. 2 of them are going to go in Anguilla, one at the end, one right into Somerville. There's going to be one across from the monument at both Maleta and Kay's Circle, and then 2 on the west side of the entrance gate coming in at Pine Island. So there'll be 7 street lights that we will own. We will not be paying the monthly LCEC fee on them. The reason it takes so long, there are just very few companies that make these. You can't go to Home Depot or Lowe's and pick up a street light. It takes a long time. They weigh 900 pounds a piece, but they are on the way.
The fixtures are made in Canada.
Fixtures in Canada, the poles are made in Alabama. One other thing, we have a lot of pool lounge chairs that have broken. The welding has broken. I'm just going to read this. There are 18 to 20 broken pool lounge chairs that need fairly simple aluminum welding to give them additional life. The brakes are fairly consistent in a location well away from the plastic straps. I phoned Certified Mobile Welding. He's the guy that's come here before and repaired our gates. And he charges $125 an hour from the time he leaves his shop. And he expects that it'll take a full day or right at $1,000 to repair 20 chairs. Our other option is to transport the chairs to Action Welding. It would take a pickup truck. I took a chair there the other day, and I found we could cut the cost in half to about $25 per chair. Seems like a lot of money to spend on these chairs. However, they retail on Amazon right now for $445 a piece. So if we can get a little more life out of them for tacking them with a welder for $25, I think it's well worth it.
Anyway, is this all right? Since we're going to have the welder out, can we have him give us a price for Trafalgar Gate? We've had a bid for it since I've worked here. Exit gate.
Okay, but
Well, he's thinking of taking the chairs
if we
to the
take them
welder
in,
for
we
half the
won't.
price.
But
Would that same company be willing to?
I
Give us a
know
deal
some.
on it?
I know somebody that can fix that.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
That's all I have.
Well, then I think that we need to have a motion to take the money out of the reserve to repair these chairs rather than paying $445 a chair times 20. We can fix them for $500.
And that's that's not a set figure. That's
No.
He goes by an hourly rate, and it might be if he can do 5 an hour, it might drop down to 400. If he only does 3 an hour, it might go up a little more. But it's
I
still
would say a not to exceed number. What do you think that should be? 750 or 1,000?
yeah.
I mean, put the 1,000, and then we're not going to spend it if it doesn't.
Okay.
They are capitalized items, and reserve is, it's not a discussion that we're having here, but it's a reserve item.
$1,000,
Yeah.
not to exceed.
I agree. I think that's a board policy
Yeah.
going forward. Okay, so we have a motion?
Motion.
I have.
I'll second.
Okay, any more
Scott, you made the
discussion?
motion?
Okay, a motion is to repair the chairs not to exceed $1,000. and monies will return to the reserve, and we'll take them to the shop. All those in favor? Okay, thank you.
Delinquent accounts to the attorney for collections. There's one new account that has accrued a greater than $600 delinquency for a period of greater than 60 days. The account is highlighted in yellow. I recommend the board make a motion to forward the following account to the attorney for collections, account 15777.
Okay. All
I
those-
move that we accept the recommendation for account number 1577 being sent to the attorney.
Second?
Just a quick question on that, on the motion, though. That account that's in the rears of 600, foreclosure or short sale, or is it a homeowner?
Homeowner.
Thank you.
The actual information's in the board pack.
Yeah, just,
Okay.
Next, account fines,
Oh,
deed
hold-
restriction.
We haven't
hold
made-
on.
we haven't voted.
We don't have a second and we haven't voted.
Second and vote. Second? Marilyn made
that's
it.
fine.
Come second.
Okay, all right, all in favor? Okay,
Account fines regarding deed restrictions, we had, due to the transition of Carol and Tracy, we've fallen a little bit, probably about 2 weeks behind, and we're not going to have anyone else on that list until next month to forward to the hearing committee.
okay,
So no board business. On the gate strikes, I recommend the board make a motion to fine the following accounts and visitors $100 each for tailgating and or unauthorized entry into the gates. For the audience, we have a total of 5. They're all visitors. 3 of those are residential, and 2 of them are commercial. I'm looking for a motion for the board.
I so move.
second? Okay, all in favor? Okay, next.
The last business item tonight, neighborhood representatives. In previous years, the general manager has made neighborhood reps appointments. I do not believe that is appropriate. Further, I believe the most appropriate method of appointing a neighborhood rep should come from the homeowners. Moreover, I believe homeowners within each neighborhood should elect their own neighborhood reps. I've administered a neighborhood rep program in prior years where this was done successfully. Further, once neighborhood reps are established, I believe the neighborhood reps should elect their own leaders. And I'm going to be recommending a chairperson, vice chair, and secretary for that group. Information will then funnel from the homeowners to their leadership, to the general manager, and to the board, and then vice versa. In the coming months, I've tasked myself with creation of a neighborhood rep document that will delineate all logistics, policies, procedures, terms, those type of things within the neighborhood rep program. In the interim, I still need help from current neighborhood reps, especially as we're beginning the preparations for Halloween and electronic voting. As a result, I would like to keep the current neighborhood reps in place until that time, and tonight fill any spots that we have open. Anguilla Single Family has Ted Durr as the primary rep and Lou Natali as alternate. No changes recommended. And Anguilla Villas 1 has Larry Werner as the primary and Don Swindell as the alternate. No changes recommended. Ashbury has Ruth, I apologize if I mispronounce the names, but Chigar as the primary and Kathleen Falstini as the alternate. No changes recommended. Belleville's primary, Tom Kingsley, resigned. Alternate Lynn Berry prefers to remain an alternate. I recommend applicant Denise Nedgefeld be appointed as a primary. There were no other applicants. Bellingham is retaining Marty Tubb as the primary. There is not a current alternate and no applicants were received. Blackburn is retaining Rita Purvis as the primary. There is not a current alternate and no applications were received. Castleberry had no current volunteers. One applicant was Gary Cootie. I spoke to Gary and he's happy to step aside to allow the other two the opportunity to serve, as he's already volunteering and her as the alternate. Kays currently has Marcia Denning as the primary. However, they had no alternate. We had one applicant, Jerome Ladner, and as a result, I would like to recommend Jerome as the alternate. Clairfont has Kelly Nay as the primary rep and Barb Cohen as the alternate. No application received, so no changes recommended. Fairmont currently has no representation after Del Collio resigned. No other applications were received. Greendale has no current representation. However, 2 applications were received, one from Kathy Chaplin and one from Jennifer Brandon. By all accounts, Kathy has done a wonderful job in that role previously and is a great volunteer, has been a great volunteer for me over the past 6 months. However, since she's already had the opportunity to serve as the primary, I'm recommending Jennifer for the primary and Kathy for the alternate. Hopefield is retaining Jerry Dietry as the primary. There is not a current alternate and no applications were received. Lambay has Linda Mooney as the primary and Jeanette Bazan as the alternate. No applications received, so no changes recommended. Lavaca has Thomas Wagner as the primary and Tom Harner as the alternate. No applications received, so no changes are recommended. Maleta has Joan Vermeer as the primary, and 2 applicants were received for the alternate position, John Charters and Jane Dubus. John's application was received prior to Jane's, and as a result, I'm recommending John for the alternate role. Maryville has Lori Bernard as the primary and Chris Bechtel as the alternate. No further application received, no changes recommended. Somerville has Jerry Kern as the primary and Pat Pogge as the alternate. No further application received, no changes recommended. Stony Hill has David Parks as the primary and Betty Fishburne as the alternate. No further application received, no changes recommended. Sunville has had no representation. However, Patricia and Brian Pulisciano applied for the positions. As a result, I recommend Patricia for the primary and Brian as the alternate. Sutherland has Rick Doan as the primary. However, there currently is not an alternate. 1 applicant, Mike Dahlberg, applied for the role. As a result, I'm recommending Mike as the alternate. Vario has 2 openings. Del Ross resigned, and due to 3 others applying, and Steve Putnam having his plate full as late volunteer, he agreed to make way for some new volunteers. Tamara Bilicek applied first. Bellick, sorry. Applied first, essentially the first day I was with Sandoval, she came in. As a result, I'm recommending Tamara as the primary. Jeff applied several months ago, so as a result, I'm recommending him for the alternate. Thanks to Stu for volunteering, and I'm sure we'll find a spot for him somewhere in the near future. Verdmont has Lisa Major Roundtree as the primary. However, there currently is not an alternate. 1 applicant, Grady Stevens, applied for that role. As a result, I'm recommending Grady as the alternate. Lastly, Wynwood has Ernie Giordano as the primary and Michael Cristo as the alternate. No further applications received and no changes recommended. So what I'm looking for the board to do is to make a motion accepting my recommendations or make a motion accepting them with suggested changes.
Jerry, I just have one addition. It was my understanding that a resident by the name of Melanie Palmer applied to be a Lambay representative, and I don't believe you mentioned a Lambay representative.
Lambay has Linda Mooney. No, I did not have her application.
She said she sent an application in.
Okay. Well, there's no opening. So what I did is, yeah, so I appreciate that. So what the comment was, if y'all didn't hear, so there was an email that went out about a month and a half ago after we originally looked at everything, and I solicited for applications for any openings that we had. So if someone applied and we didn't have an opening, as this person may have, I'll contact her tomorrow and talk to her about that. But again, I would like to reemphasize, this is only to fill some holes for the next few months, and we're really excited about the opportunity to roll out the new program where the streets actually vote for the neighborhood reps. I think that works really well. So I'm seeking a motion from the board.
One question. On the document you sent me, it's got Anguilla Villas 1. You've got Don Wells as the alternate.
I
Was
told
that a
him that
typo?
I didn't move over there.
You have an old document.
I so move then.
Thank you,
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Discussion?
Is there discussion? Is there discussion? No, okay, then vote. Okay,
Okay, did you vote in favor? And did you vote in favor? I didn't see, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
okay. Next, is that all? We done?
That's it. Oh, solicitation for additional agenda items?
Okay, additional agenda items. People that would like to bring up anything that we've talked about or haven't talked about on the board.
One thing I would like to see from maybe the Finance Committee at some point in time is, I know, just, again, thank you everyone for the emails that have been sent to me regarding your comments and concerns, but I think there's some sort of confusion out there to the residents when, you know, we give our financial report as to the millions of dollars that are in the bank account and how those millions of dollars are really all accounted for, and there is no real extra money like some people might believe. I think a short and sweet something from, you know, the Finance Committee saying this is what's in the telecommunications and this is what's in the CDs, but that money is reserve money and blah, 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 and there is no other money. I think that really would clear the air for people that think we have extra money.
I think also there was some concern when we were talking about the chairs, and that would come out of the reserve and not come out of the operations. Well, the operations is our budget that we're trying to get balanced, and that's not something that we've got any extra flush to take care of something like that. And it's in a perfect example of something. The reserve account, by definition, is maintenance and repair of existing assets that we have. So taking that money out of the reserve to pay for fixing those chairs at $1,000 versus paying $10,000 to buy new ones I think is a prudent move. Just for clarification. And when we have resident comments. We're coming to that. We're still, the board's still talking. That's coming. Okay, any other? Is there a motion to adjourn? Okay. Now, we have, we're open for resident comments. Here's the list.
John told me she's resigning from Land Bay, so your Land Bay person might have to be here.
Awesome.
I'm glad to hear it.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, I will. That'd be awesome. Thank you. Okay, the first person.
Can I suggest if she does resign that you
Can we appoint Melanie?
Yeah,
now?
absolutely.
If that is an
Contingent,
accurate,
contingent.
we'll confirm that. We'll have to go back into session here. Just everybody agree to return to session?
Yeah.
Let's say we will verify that information, and if that is in fact true, then Melanie will be put on for Land Bay. Everybody, motion second and
Motion.
Motion second, vote. Okay.
The first person to speak in open. I'm sorry.
We're still in session now. Ron seconded. He does. Don't you want? That's right. I thought he did. Okay, then all in favor.
Aye.
Okay.
First
With that,
person-
meeting adjourned. Okay.
First person speaking in open forum is Horowitz. I'm sorry, I couldn't read the first name.
That are lots that are supposed to be part of the Phase 3 landscaping. How much are we talking about? How much land is involved in that? Because originally it sounded like it was going to be $6 more a month per house for that. And I just wondered how much are we talking about? How many acres or what pieces and where are they?
Yeah, we're still negotiating with that, and we think we're defining land at this point, redefining it, verifying it, and can you guys hear me?
And we think right now, again, we're probably going to be $1 to $2 in that range at the most.
So it's not going to have the initial impact that we thought. But again, until we're looking for plats at this point from the city, until we can have 100% definition of the land.
Of what
it would
you're
be-
talking about.
That's correct. It would be difficult to price or to answer your question.
So you're saying that land was taken care of or was paid out of the HOA? Is that what you had been saying?
Well, I'm saying there's land that was not taken care of
Oh,
at all.
We're talking about the perimeter area, and we're going to get these actual plot plans, because I'm not going to allow any contracts or discussion to go forward on an assumption. And as soon as we know that, we'll get a one-time fix for this. We'll know what it is. We'll have plot plans that'll be drawn out, and this confusion and the shell game, as I call it, will cease to be occurring. So your
All right.
question's well taken.
Okay.
I can't give you the exact answer because I don't know exactly which property is inside the fence, which property is outside the fence, and that's why it's imperative that we know 100%.
okay, and the other question regarding that is the irrigation. I know that you're saying that's probably be cut in half what they're going to charge, but is there any documentation as to what they do on a weekly basis? I mean, they just come back and say, well, we fix this, we fix that. I mean, how do you know what they're actually doing? And who is this mysterious person that nobody ever sees that goes around and does this work?
Right, so it's,
I like it.
me too. So it's a licensed irrigator, and
It's what? What was that?
a licensed irrigator, and when they do wet checks, that's where they check all the irrigation system through the community. They'll develop work orders based on deficiencies, and when they develop the work order, that develops a proposal that they then provide to me, and then I would go out myself.
You go
and
verify it.
And the landscape chair. Now, we won't look at every single one. What we'll do is spot check. And if we see one, then we increase those spot checks. And if we don't see any, we just stay flat at that.
So it's done on a spot check basis? Because I don't think we've ever seen anyone looking at anything on our property.
Yeah, I've heard that too, and I have not either, so I can assure you that will be followed up. And we've got every means in the world to do that with our security camera system and in
Because that seems very high, even if it's cut in half. It just seems like nobody's ever seen anybody doing anything.
Right. Well, it's proposals that we get for irrigation repairs. The Master Association has been paying for it on your behalf. And we just don't feel it's appropriate for all the other community to pay for the neighborhood irrigation. So that's what promulgated the actual issue.
Okay.
And so give you an example, the budget for those repairs for the common area for the master last year was roughly $50,000. Next year's budget's $30,000. Why is it less? Because we know now the neighborhoods are going to take care of their own. Nevertheless, again, those budget numbers, they're not exact because it's not a contract. And so that's what enabled us, to actually make the decision to reduce it. But it just means we have to manage it extremely tight because, as I've mentioned in some of the budget workshops, it's tough to go back to the well once we've made an assessment. And I would say that we can probably get it to 3, and where that is very close to actuals last year, not necessarily every neighborhood, but on aggregate. So there's going to be some neighborhoods that do a little better and some neighborhoods that do worse on those repairs. But a lot of it's depending on the age of the irrigation system.
I just want to make another comment about last time, at the budget meeting, you were discussing a surplus for these different neighborhoods, that if you didn't use everything, you would, have it the next time. But we already have a surplus. We have the CL fund. That is a surplus. And to me, that was a pre-assessment. So I'm saying anything that increases our budget and you're going to do an assessment should come out of the CL funds. That's the way I feel.
I appreciate you saying that, but actually, the CL fund would not be able to be appropriated for a neighborhood expense.
Well, I'm just saying in general, any increase in the budget, not just for the landscaping, but any that, you're still working on the budget.
Agree.
So I'm opposed to any increase in the budget. If there is an increase in the budget, then it should come out of the CL funds because that was already prepaid.
Okay.
We've been paying 3.5 years into that.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you. Next, Fran McKinnon.
bravo to you, Molly. That was a fantastic idea to move the wall out. I think everybody got a real joy out of that.
Well, this was not my light bulb idea. That was Al's light bulb. He brought that up, and I just spoke about it because Al is a very modest man. He does
Al,
lots of
bravo.
things behind.
Bravo.
It is 100% Al Roper.
Okay. All right, I got a few questions, but I promise I'll be quick. The gentleman that read the attorney's letter, that we had to fire the architectural design person that we had, the
I
contractor?
read the letter.
Okay, did we give him a retainer of any kind? Does he have any of our money?
Yes, absolutely.
Did we get it back after you fired him?
The attorney?
No, the guy that we hired that we had to fire. The architect, not the attorney. The construction company, the guys doing the work.
I would-
Manual
The
labor.
architect.
Defer to our treasurer.
Did we get our money back? Did we give him a retainer? We paid for all the contracts? Okay. Why? Yeah, it is. Why did we pay for all the contracts? Who, me?
Your mic's on.
Oh.
That is a good question, but those funds were expended before this board was seated.
Okay.
So we've looked at trying to recover, but it's tough to get blood out of a turnip.
Is it,
Oh,
is it,
I agree.
is it fair to give the amount out to the residents?
Well, yeah, it's the 122,000 that's on the balance sheet. It was most of that. Some of that was for engineering and other things that will still be of use and we will get value out of, but most of it was architectural fees.
So with the new people that we're going to look to hire, we're not going to be doing that, right?
Well, I'd like to
the
add
problem-
to what Bill said, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Also, we are currently evaluating our options going forward, so whether we're able to capture any of those funds in the future at this point is unknown. This was actually moving rather quickly, as Molly indicated when she
Okay.
read her statement.
Mhm.
So obviously, we're talking 15 minutes before the meeting, but
I
we are
see.
certainly going to look very, very closely at that. But I do appreciate the question.
Who be?
But going forward, as we move into the next phase, we would not pay in advance of services rendered.
Fabulous. I like the sound of that. Okay.
I also mentioned that we're going to hire a project manager who will work with the architect that designs the building, and every step of the way we will be advised as to whether it's in budget, what the budget's going to be.
Perfect.
So if this happens the second time, it's not because we haven't planned ahead.
Right. Okay. Just another quick question. What did you mean when you said that you wanted to bring the community back up to its original specs? I bought the house 5 years ago. The place is still gorgeous. What do you mean bring it back up to what it was? Can you explain that?
Well, I can tell you a number of residents have commented otherwise. I can also tell you when we're evaluating these contracts, we found out they've backed out a lot of services in order to save money.
Yes.
And we can point to many, many areas. For instance,
Give me one. Okay, I need it.
one example. You're driving down the street and you see green. The old statement was, if it's green, it goes. But those were weeds. So now when we treat those weeds, what are you going to get? You're going to get dead areas of grass. So frankly, any reasonable landscaper will not go, if it's green, it goes. And that's not an acceptable standard.
Mhm.
And we're also talking about other areas, like dedicating someone towards deed restriction to make sure we have a consistency in our community. And frankly, that wasn't done for a very, very long time. And all we're saying, not everybody has the same opinion, but a lot of people do view that. And when you see clearly, objectively, that services have been backed out of contracts in order to prop up the budgets to lower costs, that's exactly what they're talking about. And that's objectively 100% has happened. Not one person on this board would argue otherwise.
Okay, thank you. With that $100,000 that you talked about, Jerry, of the unpaid HOA, is that just homes, is that condos, or is that a combination of both?
It's just the master association and those.
Okay.
Includes everything.
Okay.
So Somerville as well.
The poor gentleman that was talking about the fence, I apologize. I'm wicked sorry. I didn't know I was supposed to be quiet when you were talking, that I was asking questions.
It's okay.
I'm sorry. But on that fence, how deep does that go down into the ground?
I do not, oh, the fence or the upright structure?
The
fence-
uprights, the uprights. but-
Whatever the structural code is for that, I don't know that. That's an engineering, whatever it needs to meet the 150 mile an hour wind resistant, that is what they will put that into the ground.
And do they say anything about any support stanchions, every so feet or yards or whatever, extra support
No,
stanchions?
there are no extras. It's just 2 uprights. We're doing 5-foot panels, so you'll have 2 uprights on each end of that 5-foot panel.
Concrete, okay. One silly thing, it's awful hard to find the Veterans Gate at night. I mean, when you're on Veterans, can you use a brighter light bulb or something in those things that say, you know, the big Sandoval thing right out on the street? You go by it before you even find the driveway. Do you know the picture that you show in the beginning?
No,
of
we
the-
know, I know exactly where you mean. That
Yeah.
project was actually, 2 lights were added, believe it or not, when we redid the entrance, re-landscaped the entrance, the main entrance. 2 lights were added
Oh,
because
boy.
they were missing. And I don't think Jim Swikert's here, but he was instrumental in.
He is.
Where?
He most certainly is.
He's alive.
Oh, boy.
So he was working with the city or the county to try and get a street light in that area, and that's probably still something in progress, but it duly noted that that is a dark area, and there are 2 missing ones that probably, will be addressed in the future.
Okay. Somebody made the comment, I don't know who it was, that we're going to hire a professional developer to help keep us in line. What did that mean? Somebody said something to that, like to keep us on our...
Project manager.
Project manager?
Project manager is a construction manager
And,
for a project.
and we need him all the time, all the time?
He would not be an
This is how you
employee.
keep the thing in the budget.
It's like he would be the general contractor, but he would be over the project as it's going to see that it goes according to budget and that payments are made at the appropriate time, that the amount of work has been done.
Okay, so he's bases
So-
his pay on what he does.
His pay is based on what he does, and he authorizes payment. If the contractor's pouring footers and he's 30% done and there's a draw request put in for footers, he ensures we don't pay more than 30% of that line item.
Perfect.
He's also the person who 3 bids on different contractors for each part of the project.
Perfect. All right.
With only one question.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Two limits, 1 question, 3 minutes.
I will be very brief. My name's Tamara Balisic, and I live on Vario Court. And I want to thank the board for all the work that you're doing with the budget. I've observed both of the budget work sessions, and I thank you for working with the landscape contracts. But I have a question, because I did attend the last budget work session, and one of the things that came up, which I had completely forgot, to clarify for the residents, that the CenturyLink contract is scheduled, that our CenturyLink dues is to increase, I guess, this next year. So what would the monthly fee per house go up to, the base amount? From, like, what is it?
It will not go up at all because
Well-
we're currently assessing ourselves at the old rate.
Right.
So what would be put into the telecommunications fund would go down by the increase in the CenturyLink contract.
Okay, so what is the difference, though?
It's gonna, best I remember, it's
Per
like
household.
$3 a month per household. And then that's after year 4, and beginning in year 5, they can increase it by somewhere between 5 and 10% per year at their discretion.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify then that $3 you're looking at as a decrease in what's going into the CenturyLink fund, which I heard you say tonight, am I correct, is actually that money's now going into the general fund?
No.
Did I hear you say that?
What we said before was the board, when we first installed Envira, voted to fund the $8,000 a month of Envira operating out of the telecommunications fund. So to make it more clear, instead of having it on the financials, it's going in the telecommunications and then coming back out of the telecommunications to pay that expense. less will go into the telecommunications. It will stay in regular operating and be used to pay that bill, which will also show on the financial statements.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Okay.
Tony, and I'm gonna try the last name.
Burdette?
Tony, L-U-K-I-N. Can you pronounce that for me, please, sir? Thank you.
And I'm going to apologize in advance because between this crappy phone system, this mic system, and my bad ears, I heard very little tonight. But I did pick up a lot of numbers and financial stuff. And just for a little background, my last 7 years, I worked for a $1.4 billion multinational company as their CFO. So I know a little bit about how accounting works, very little. But there were some things that concern me. There's a lady back there that read a statement that said something, and I can't remember exactly, that our statements are not correct, or they were not accurate, or they were wrong. And then, what is your name, sir? Mr. Tubbs, you said that we then went to GAAP, Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. Are these statements that the HOA that they have, are they looked at by us, independent CPA?
They are audited by a CPA, and they are per GAAP. What I said about GAAP was that this $8,000 for Envira, where it was being funded out of the telecommunications fund instead of showing on normal financial statements, we're putting both the revenue and the expense on the financial statements so that it will be per GAAP. But that was just for that one item.
Okay, because I was concerned that we were reading statements that didn't meet GAAP. So the
No,
statements were unqualified. They were not qualified statements, except for this, except for that. They were qualified by an independent CPA firm.
Well, they were audited, and we were given a no condition of approval of them.
That's comforting. Just one thing, this is, I really could care if the HOA fees go up. I can afford it. Probably everybody here can. I'm more concerned about the spending end. And in 2007 and 8, when the market started crashing, as a senior manager of a company, we took preemptive measures to guard ourselves. And one thing that I've always said to people, I can't tell you how to make more money, how to earn a higher income, but I know how to control costs and expenses. And just a general rule of thumb for me is, if I'm looking at HOAs as a board member, I would do everything to watch my expenses a lot more carefully than to see how I can spend money that's already there, that got there long before anybody got here. So it's a lot easier to spend money than it is to cut money. And I think people would feel very comfortable if they saw every effort to control costs at whatever measure is necessary. I don't know if I see that. I mean, I've been here, I've had a home here for 2011, 12, something like that. And every year, there was a budget, there were revenues, no overages, no unders, no problems. All of a sudden, we're faced with an increase. And the costs all of a sudden go up? I don't know. It seems unusual to me.
To tell you the truth, if you look back at some of our previous audited statements, in prior years, we had $85,000, $95,000 negative fund balance. So we were not breaking even at that time. The budgets that we had in the past and that we're dealing with this year, we feel like are not adequate to run this operation. So what we're trying to do now is set up a budget that is adequate to run this operation. And if we say there's a 5, a 10, a 15, a 20% increase, if it was 20% too low last year, it's not that we're splurging money, it's that we're trying to get a realistic budget. And we do not believe last year's...
What is the dollar amount here?
We're still working on it.
I mean, roughly. Is it 2 million? Is it 50 million? Is it...
If you take out the wash line, that's probably $2.5 million. $2.5
million, 95,000 as a percent of that, that's an acceptable amount. That really is. That's pretty damn close. I mean, has anybody here ever performed budgets before here? I have. I've done it for large companies. Large companies.
Well,
if I could come that close, I'd be walking on water, so.
My organization was $1.8 billion. It was a school district of Lee County, so I'm used to big numbers.
Thank you.
I'll be real short. I'm Kathy Conway. I live on Vareo as well. I just want to raise the topic of electronic voting. When the attorney was here back in May, he strongly suggested that we start in October. We need the lead time to get a system in place, the training. I'm just wondering what's the plan, and I hope to hear more about this on the October agenda.
Actually started a month ago. He actually wanted us to begin with the board vote in October, so we went ahead and took the board vote early to get that out of the way. It was always been my intention. Ron Spooner has been active as far as asking me and wanting to be involved with this as well. And the intention is, once we get done with the budget, that is our primary
Do you anticipate
focus.
standing up an ad hoc committee?
I don't know yet how
Okay.
I'm going to talk to Ron and the rest of the board about the logistics
Okay,
of
because
it.
people are asking. They want to
Yeah.
get involved.
Yeah, but we will be seeking involvement
Okay,
in
perfect.
one
Thank
form
you.
or another. Thank you, Kathy. Next up is Pat Shanahan.
Hi, my concern is the cyclone fence between, the chain link between the golf course and us. If the whole width of that thing is as bad as it is on my property, it's being held together with twist tie from the bread wrapper. No, that's not, I don't think it's funny. And we've been trying for 8 years to have them do something. The kids dig holes under it and get their bicycles under it and come use our facilities. And you were there, you were at my house the other day.
Yeah, I actually came out to take a look at that.
Okay.
And I agree with you. And we do have funds in the reserve study to take care of that. And it's just
Well,
so many.
I was promised that 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Still studying,
Here's
it's a
what
long
I'll
study.
commit to you. I will put it on the budget.
Thank you.
On the agenda every month until we get it done as an update. It's this far. Sometimes I'll show you. No.
Mike.
Last name, Mike?
Mike, W-O-J-T-A-N-E-K,
And what's your topic?
Phase 3.
Thank you. Go ahead.
The
Yeah.
budget.
Okay.
Did I understand when you read off the financials that you renewed our CD for 1.8%? Was that what I had read when you read the financial statement? And I'm assuming that's a 12-month CD? Okay, because I was just at Chase. Why would you renew it at 1.8 when?
In the market that we're currently using, that was the best that was offered. We also have to stay out of, because the board's policies, it has to be insured. So we can't put more than one CD at any one institution.
Okay.
Because we would lose the insurance at that point.
Okay.
Because over 250. So the market that where we're buying them currently is, it went from 225, something like that, several months ago to now 185 is about the best that's out there.
Yeah, because I mean, I was just there. It was 2.02 for a 12-month. I'm assuming a 2-year would probably be 2.5, 2.25.
Well, we're looking at 225 at SunTrust to do some more, yes.
Okay. So, because it kind of surprised me when you said you renewed it for 1.8, when I thought there was better money out there than that.
Well, if we were to go to every bank individually to do this, we might be able to do that.
Yeah.
But most of these we have right now, there's Mutual of Omaha does it for us. So
Okay, then maybe we need
what's
to find
available
somebody
to us.
else that's do a better job with our money.
The finance committee has talked about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, if I can just go to the bank and see it on a placard on somebody's desk, I mean, it would be very easy with your fingers to do the walking to find out what the best rate is for a 2-year CD. So, just my thoughts.
Okay.
If it was my money, I'd put it into the best CD I could get.